So I think it was a month ago when we spoke about an idea for this sound panel. And we had several ideas, like everybody's introducing themselves and just doing a showcase of everybody's work, but that would be boring, right? You see that in every game conference. You see over and over the self-gloating on each other's work. And I think we have here a very talented array of sound composers. So we sat down and we decided that this time I'll be the client. I'll send those talented guys a list of games. They will choose one game, and those kind of games are games that they never heard about. So they will pick one game and they will compose, according to my request, another alternative soundtrack for it. So I think we'll start describing the game that I chose. Okay, so I'm playing that without sound because that's the way they saw that. And I'm wondering if any of you is recognizing that game. Anyone? So that's a game that was developed in 2007 by Edmund Macmillan, which is the game designer of Super Meat Boy. You probably recognize that name. And that was actually one of the first, I'll play that again, that was actually one of his first games. And what's unique is that this is his own game design and art, and he did that just to tell about his time in high school and in elementary school and what bullying he was experienced. And this game is a game that you play as a very small boy, shaped like an octopus-like creature, and a monster. And you have to travel through planets, and when you succeed, you transform them from monochrome to real color. And it's a really interesting puzzle game, and I thought that was a nice pick. So I think let's ask for the first sound composer, Alon Kaplan. Can you? Hello. Hi. So I was very interested when you seen that film, when you seen that cut of a game. What did you thought about the game, and what made you select the soundtrack that we will hear in a second? What was the parameter that guided you and the vision by composing the way that you did?
Okay. Hi, everyone. When I saw the game, the first thing I see is this little strange creature. I'm not sure what is it. Is it a small elephant or whatever? And so I immediately thought the music should be, for a start, should be small and cute. It's a very cute creature. So I started to compose this cute music, and I chose a cute sound for it. And then I saw the pace of the game. Like it's a nice pace. It's not so fast. But it has a rhythm. You just jump all the time on these ropes, and it has a kind of also kind of a cute rhythm. So I chose to do a little valse music. But I didn't stop there, because if it was just a cute little valse, it won't be enough energy. And this is a game after all, and you need to keep going and everything. So I added the drums and bass and everything. And then the interesting part came, which I saw that the more higher you get to a darker place, to the space, and it's you get a little more loneliness feeling. So I said I should change something in the music. This could be applied in the game also. In like Unity 5, you can do that. You can control the channels. So I did something that is called a low pass and high pass filter, which is changing the frequencies of the drums and the bass. So according to the height of the creature, the music changes. So the drums and the bass disappear the more higher you get. And when you get back to the ground stage, all the drums come back. And yeah, that's about it.
Great. So let's listen to what you composed. Awesome.
Thank you.
Well done. So my next sound composers is Yinon. Hi, Yinon.
Hi.
I know you and most of your creation, and there's always drums in there. It's almost energetic, super energetic composing with a very fast-paced methods. What did you think when you seen that game for the first time, and how did it affected you?
So, yeah, it's true. I think my favorite instrument to play is the drums, so I always try to find new ways to use it in new places where I can lead with the drums. And this task was a little bit special because no one really told us what we need to do. Usually you have like a client and he says like, I want it like this or I want it like that. So I kind of took this opportunity to say, okay, the drums are going to lead here. No, there is no one to tell me that this is not what's happening. So, and the first thing I did was I sat at the drums and I played the video and I just played the drums, kind of trying to sense the rhythm of the game and recreate it with the drums. So everything afterwards followed that process.
Okay, great. Let's listen to your creation. Wow. Amazing, man.
Thanks.
But I'm biased, I'm a drummer. Okay, so my next sound composer, my favorite maybe? No, I'm not biased. Is NivGo. And I don't really, when I know you're composing, you don't have any one tool that guides your work. You like work with everything. I mean, you're not like only a drummer, you do everything. So what?
True.
And I was really intrigued to see your work. And I was thinking, did you even think that this game is related to something that is like bullying or something that try to teach something? Because when you look at first at that game, you have no clue. I mean, when I got to know the game at the first time, I thought it's just a fun puzzle game, but then I discovered, and I also talked about it overseas, on using that to explain to children the difference and making their life better, and that the transformation between monochrome and color. So what were you thinking when you were seeing the first time that kind of a game, and did you have a plan when you seen it at first time to how to compose it, or what elements to use?
Okay, so hi everybody. And the first thing what I saw, I don't have a plan since I see it for the first time. I cannot have a plan. So I just get feelings and, you know, from the images, from the movement, from the atmosphere and the inner beat of the game. I just get the senses. And what caught my eye, first of all, it's that it's black and white. It's very monochrome, maybe it's a better word. And the movement of when he hangs on a cloud, this movement, I think that was the first thing that really caught my attention. It felt like dit. But I must say before, no, I'm not sure if the audience know, but we haven't seen each other works. It's the first time as well. Am I right? So it's very interesting because I saw this movement of this swinging, and it felt waltz to me as well. Yeah, even though it's like then it's like moving like this. It felt like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why. I heard it in my mind. I usually do hear in my mind. I never go and play to look for stuff. I just hear it and I do it. That's it. So it felt like waltz, and I thought, okay, I'll go for a waltz. And you asked about the atmosphere of the game, what it delivers. So as I said, since it's a monochrome and something about the images of the characters, you do sense the loneliness. And I also played the game, by the way, without hearing its music, which I didn't do. I don't know if you did, but I never heard the original music of the game. Anyhow, so I went for the waltz. I began do it a little bit orchestral, a little bit classic, and then I thought I'm going to twist it because it's not classic game in the musical sense. I mean classic. And so I did a few twists. I went for a flute, which is not exactly like a flute. It's like a little bit cute flute, like a bit synthesized. This will represent the boy, the character, the main character. And I chose a cello to go for this creature, this monster, underneath this kid. And as a general feel, I added some orchestral sounds, but all in all, it's not a classic orchestral sound to represent what's going on there. And then when it goes up, I left the waltz. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I went 1 ta 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 1 ta ta to increase the intensity of the game. I added some drums, and maybe you should see it.
Yeah, so before we listen to your soundbite, that reminded me that there is another game that is called TapOnIt, which you play a kid and a monster. And they are both very good friends, but when the monster is eating frogs, it becomes very wild. And the creator of the game made that based on his father, which was an alcoholic person. And he always tried to change him. But he always knew that when his father is turning into that monster, he cannot do anything. He wanted to help him most of his life, but eventually, and the end of the game, I will not ruin it, but there is still hope. It's a semi-happy, semi-bad end. So that reminded me really the inspiration of that game, which was made like maybe 8 years later on. So let's...
By the way, if you play the game in the intro, I didn't read any background of the game.
There's a story. Yeah,
yeah, it just says it's a lonely boy. He's going to look in other planets to see if he's the only lonely one or there are others. So exactly. It does reflect in the game, of course.
Okay, let's listen. Thank you. So last but not least, Arnold.
Hi. Hello.
Are we going to hear a metalhead version of that? Yeah?
No.
You will not fail.
No.
What did you think?
Yeah, so first of all, we, as Niv said, we didn't get a chance to hear until now the other composers, and I was talking to a guy, and I went like, yeah, I think everyone are gonna sound pretty much the same, and I was wrong. For me, it was basically, I saw that there are 4 parts to this video. The first one is where he's jumping on the balloons, and as everyone here said, there is a certain rhythm to it. Then there is the transition when you go up, and everything becomes darker and also a lot faster. The pace there changes dramatically. And then when you come down. So I kind of thought about it as those 4 moments where I want to go pretty intense when the pace is fast because I want to have this. I kind of had the feeling that the game doesn't, like it's action-y, so I should support that. So I went very electronic action music there. But also at the same time, there are 2 elements of the game. One is cuteness, because it looks kind of cute, so you still have to maintain that for the whole process. And the other one is, I think the game is kind of not really polished, if you know what I mean. Like, not that it's bad, but it has this feeling like, you know, it's not a AAA game when someone said, and like, I've worked on every pixel, it's like.
Yeah, actually the game was developed in 7 days.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it was based on scribblings of Edmund Macmillan in his notebook. So that's actually quite the original, but a little bit polished drawings that he made. So yeah, it's very indie. It's very interesting story behind that. It's actually the game has several worlds. So every world has its own colors when it is completed, and its own physics or quest to.
Makes sense. So I kind of wanted also to have this feeling in the music, and this was a bit of a weird choice where I didn't want to overproduce it. So it's kind of has this home recording sound to it where it's almost distorted, but it's not like it's not a very good mix and mastering as you would normally do. So that's what I was trying to go for.
What was the most difficult part of composing for that game? Biggest challenge?
I think the transitions were very important to me, so landing those, like I wanted it to feel exactly the transitions will be smooth between the parts. Yeah, I guess those. And also there is a thing that I didn't know anything about the game before, but I kind of had the feeling that there is a story to it. I like the first time I saw it, I thought like, okay, this is just an action game. And then I saw it a few times, and at some point I went like, all right, there is a story to it. I have no idea what it is. Like this is the first time I found out that it's about bullying. But it's interesting that I did figure out that there was some kind of story, so I also wanted some motive to have, so I have something at the beginning that is there again at the end.
Yes. So for me, for the first time, I looked at the game through the YouTube link. The first thing I sensed was the differentiation between the descending and the elevation. And for me, elevation was like, I'm getting happier, I'm free, I'm flying, wee! And getting down is like getting very depressing. But I didn't know the story.
It's actually 2 different approaches here of Niv and Alon. Alon, when you go up, took the drums out.
It's more quiet.
Brought them in, and I think mine is a lot closer to Niv's.
Okay, great. So let's sound Arnold's composing. Amazing. So I think we have about 5 minutes up until the questions. So what I would like is like one line or maybe several tips for people who are just starting to compose, getting out of Rimon School or other sound composing schools, and getting over with that kind of a drill. Alon, you told me you had such a test in Rimon School, like composing for games without the soundtrack and everything, and Arnold as well.
It was, yeah, we did it in the same class.
Yeah, you learned together.
But it was for film, not for video games, actually. But
he did a lot better, and
he was better.
That assignment.
But he cheated.
I just did a piano composition, yeah. But if we're talking about tips for
sound
composers, yeah, okay. Always look about the story, of course, first thing, and get into the feeling of the movement. And I always, like, when I work on video games, I ask for a video game play video. Like, I ask for video and not just to get the build of the game, because I really want to compose it as a film composer, really see what's going on in the game and be able to all the time check the music with it. So yeah, that's my tip.
For me, it depends if the music is, if the question is like, you know, business-wise of how to get into the industry, or musical.
Creatively.
Creative, yeah, I think put the story first, because musicians, especially after studies, tend to, you know, they land their first gig, so they have this option to make a video game or something, and then they really want to make sure that the music is cool, or, you know, that it's as complex as they can, because they've just spent 4 years studying, you know, orchestration and whatever. And a lot of the times in young composers, you kind of see that they're overdoing a lot of things, and putting like the musical ego, which we all have, before the game or the story. So I think the main tip is, like, forget about the music, as funny as it sounds. Think about what the story needs and support that. And if the story needs just like one note for 3 minutes, do that. And if the game requires a huge symphonic orchestra, then do that.
Yinon?
Yeah, I agree. I also think you should kind of think what characteristics of the game you want to reinforce by adding something from the music, and which ones you want to kind of counter. Sometimes you can emphasize something by doing the opposite. So if there is something really sad and you're putting happy music, sometimes it will kind of bring it out even more. So I think it's really important to know your place as a musician, and know that again, this is in most cases not your game, and you need to consult the other guy, but know what you want to reinforce and what you want to counter with your music.
Okay. Niv, let's sum it up.
I think composers should always be open-minded, and not to be afraid to delete if I did something, or if he did something which might not be the perfect tune or the perfect atmosphere to support the story, like my colleagues here said. I think you need to be not reasonable, but to have the courage to delete it and make a new one all the time, to experiment, to try. It's not, sometimes the first thing you come up with is great. I'm not saying it's not, but sometimes it's not. And always remember it and try again if there's a need.
Don't get too attached to it.
Yes. In case of films, that's true. Or games, of course.
So I want to thank you all. It was really great hearing your composement. We have time for, I think, 3 questions. Anybody? I'll come down to you.
Hey. First of all, great examples, all of you. When we are working with sound producers or composer in-house, it's very convenient because they are part of the process. They are seeing the different development stage of each project. They get the vision, they know where it's going to go, etc. But often when working with external sound producers, I'm presenting them the game in a very later stage, when we are finished with the development or just in the, the QA stage, the first time that the sound composer is going to see the game. Do you have any tips or I don't know, guidelines, or what is the best approach in order to work with external sound producers? Because it's always been a bit more complicated, because you won't have a chance to affect the game. The game is already there. You just need to adapt.
I think that you want to take. First of all, I think we'll all agree that our job as composers for games is to deliver the music that you want at the end of the day. You know your game better than we do, unless we're in-house, and probably even if we're in-house. So you want to take as much time to explain your vision as you can. And if something is wrong with that vision, then we'll tell you. And a lot of times, like, game developers get the music wrong, or they have ideas which don't make a lot of sense from the composer side. And in those cases, we can tell you, I think it's a bad idea. But I think take as much time as you can to make it super clear exactly what you want to support mostly. Like, music in games is there to support a certain feeling. If you want the player to feel agitated, if you want him to feel happy, if you want him to feel sad, if you want it, I don't know, just support the action of the game. So narrow it down to one or two main feelings that you want to have at that point, and explain it like the best you can to the composer, and take send as much text or Skypes or whatever you need. The more we get what you want, the better it will be.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I will add that as many references as Alon said, it's the best. You can always take a lot of reference from other games or films and just put on your game, and you can already see if it works as you understand, and then give that to the composer and continue from there. That works a lot.
I also think that the first thing you said was that when you show the game, it's already done, and I know that's usually what happens, but I think it makes a lot of sense to start involving the composer at an earlier stage. I know that at an earlier stage, no one thinks about it, and then a week before release, you're like, oh, we need music now. But if you want the music to become an organic part of the game, and the sounds to be a part of the world that you're creating, it makes a lot of sense to start at a very early stage. I mean, you're going to need a composer in the end, so why not involve them from the beginning?
Thanks.
I have a question about dynamic music in games. If you want to create a soundtrack for a specific part of the game, and you don't have the option to dynamically control the music, like you said about when you're flying into space, and then you can add the low and high pass filters or whatever, and you don't have the option to do it to program it, but you have to create a piece that will supplement both aspects without changing anything dynamically, but have to incorporate those two things. How would you do it in a way that they don't contradict each other, if you understand my question?
I did. I think, like you said, if you have two tracks and you want to combine them to switch sometimes in the game, there are several ways. Well, it's very technical, I think. It can be either, it depends. If your system can control the beat, then it can be played both in two tracks. One is muted, and then the system switches, fading in, fading out, both tracks.
What I mean is, when you don't have the option to do it dynamically, you don't have the option to program it and do it. How can you create one track?
Track only?
That will supplement both of these aspects that you want to create and combine them without contradiction each other at any phase.
It's a matter of timing. If you know in advance how long do you need the first part of the track, and you know for sure the game is going to change after that time, then it makes sense. Otherwise, I'm not sure there's a possibility, because it's one track ongoing on a timeline without stopping, and then if the game is not synced with it time-wise, I'm not sure it's possible, other than switching tracks, as I said.
I can add that you, of course, will lose some of the emotion in this option, because you cannot support two moods at the same time. But if I will have to do that, I will try to minimize the damage, and try to make a music that will work together with both things. But yeah, you will lose some of both worlds.
Yeah, it's going to be a compromise at the end of the day. That's the short answer. You can look for ways to do that, but both games and music are time-based art. So if you can't expect certain events at certain points, it'll be a compromise between the two.
But the technology today is it's so simple to do, like 2 tracks, and so yeah, those ways.
2 tracks in the same time may be a little bit more complicated, but you can still use 2 tracks and just change them. I think it's much easier. One is playing until a certain point in the game, then another one. I think it's this one is possible when you have only 1 track of music playing.
If we can program it, so can you.
If we can program it, you can compose it.
Okay. Thanks for our sound composing panel.